A major voting rights victory from the U.S. Supreme Court means that Louisiana's congressional maps will move forward with 2 Black opportunity districts. Welcome back to Democracy Docket. I'm Marc Elias.
And I'm Paige Moskowitz. Let's get started. We have big news out of the U.S. Supreme Court regarding Louisiana's congressional map. Tell us what happened.
Paige, this is not just a big legal development. This is a big political development. The U.S. Supreme Court, on a 6-3 vote, has blocked a lower court decision that would have redrawn Louisiana's congressional map. The net effect of this is that for 2024, Black voters in Louisiana will get that second Black opportunity district.
There has been a lot of back and forth about what congressional map Louisiana will use. As background, Louisiana redrew its congressional map after the 2020 census, despite the fact that Black residents make up 1/3 of Louisiana's population. There was only 1 out of 6 congressional districts where Black voters could elect candidates of choice. Louisiana was sued, saying that that map violates Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. A federal court concluded that Louisiana should redraw its congressional map to include 2 opportunity districts for Black voters. The Louisiana legislature, after even more back and forth, eventually complied with that. They enacted a new map in January of this year. After that, a group of self-identified non-African American voters, and we did some research on them. Some of these non-African American voters are white Louisiana residents, claim that the map was racially gerrymandered and should be struck down. A federal 3-judge panel struck down that map, leaving Louisiana as the only state without a congressional map, with mere weeks to go before election preparations had to begin. This all went up to the Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court issued its ruling yesterday and said that Louisiana should move forward and use the congressional map with 2 majority Black districts for elections this fall.
Yeah, and so this is a big win. I understand. We're going to have questions, and Paige, I am here for it. So I want you to fire away. But the top line is this is good news. The Black voters of Louisiana were denied legal districts in 2022. They were forced to vote under an illegal map that denied them their federal voting rights, right? As Paige said, it violated the Federal Voting Rights Act. And so it is good to see that for 2024, that will be remedied, and Black Louisianans will have an opportunity to elect candidates of choice in 2 congressional districts.
We asked our viewers and followers about their questions regarding this decision. The biggest question there was why did the liberal justices rule differently? Why did Justices Kagan, Sotomayor, and Brown Jackson split from the conservatives about this issue?
Yeah, so this was admittedly a very strange lineup of justices, right? You had the 6 conservative justices ruling in the way that I'm suggesting was a good outcome, and it was a good outcome. And you had the 3 liberal justices voting the other way. Now, let's first start with the fact that this was not an argued case. So this was not a case in which we have a full, long opinion that goes on for pages and pages and pages, in which the justices all lay out their theories. Instead, this was just an order that is quite short, but it gives you some clues as to why the justices lined up as they did. The conservative justices seem to think that this was just too late, that, as you say, we are getting very close to the state of Louisiana having to prepare for elections, and it is simply too late to start over with drawing new maps. That doctrine, the Purcell doctrine, is a controversial one, and it is one that is often used by conservatives to cut off litigation that conservatives say is too close to Election Day, but which progressives and voting rights advocates like I think could still go forward and provide meaningful relief. So I think what happened here is that the liberal justices, it is not that they disagreed with the outcome, I suspect. Rather, they think that the rationale was wrong, and that the court should have been allowed to proceed further, and it should not have been cut off due to the so-called Purcell doctrine. Now, let me just say, for anyone who subscribes to Democracy Docket, you know all about the Purcell doctrine. In fact, the team at Democracy Docket has written an explainer on Purcell itself that is on the site, and it is also extensively covered the back and forth about this Louisiana case and other redistricting cases, including one in South Carolina that remains pending, the case in Alabama that was decided last term. So if you are not a subscriber to Democracy Docket, please go to Democracy Docket and sign up. It's free, and you will get daily and weekly newsletters. The link for that is in the show notes below. If you want to become a Democracy Docket member and get more premium content, the link for that is also in the show notes below.
People also want to know if Louisiana is going to be using a congressional map this fall that technically has been struck down for racial gerrymandering. Why is that a good thing? Mark, why are you calling it a victory for voting rights?
So it's a victory for voting rights because, as you laid out correctly, the map that was struck down was a remedial map that the legislature enacted in order to comply with a court order under the Voting Rights Act to create a second majority Black district. And the fear that I had, and I think most of the litigants in the case who were advocating on the good guy side of this, the fear we had is that if a new map had to be put back in place that is not that map, it would only have one majority Black district. Now, I can't guarantee that. I can't be certain that that would have been the outcome, but I'm pretty sure that the white plaintiffs or the non-African-American plaintiffs here were not angling for a different map that had two majority Black districts. I think they were trying to dismantle that second majority Black district, and that would not have been the proper outcome in this case.
When does this order from the U.S. Supreme Court go into effect?
It's in effect. Good news. It's in effect. The court issued its order. This is now binding on the state of Louisiana. This is binding on the various federal court judges that are considering this. And so this will now take effect immediately. I expect the state of Louisiana will proceed with implementing the map for the 2024 election.
A lot of people want to know, can Louisiana ignore this court ruling? Can it just go forward and use whatever map it wants to use? Could it draw a new map? Does it have to listen to the U.S. Supreme Court?
So, yeah, it has to listen to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's a great question, and I know there's a lot of anxiety here. And, a related question that I'm sure I saw a lot of people post online is this the end? Can they appeal further? This is the end. Like, the Supreme Court is the final word on the application of federal law. It is the final word on application of the U.S. Constitution. This case involves both, as you say, a racial gerrymandering claim under the Constitution. It also involves a Section 2 case under federal law, under the Voting Rights Act. So the U.S. Supreme Court is the final arbiter here, and this should be the end of the case for 2020.
So it's the end of the line for the case right now at this stage for 2024. Is it the end of this lawsuit long-term for Louisiana's future?
I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say that what happened in Louisiana was a tale of how the judicial system works, right? The legislature drew that first map. It violated the rights of Black voters. Federal court case comes. Federal court case yields fair results for Black voters. Two majority Black districts are created. But no, this racial gerrymandering case was brought by these non-Black voters, some of whom at least are white, and they won that case. So that case will now continue, not for 2024 results, but we're going to have to contend with that case and its outcome as we start to look towards 2026, 2028, and 2020 and 2030. But I would also caution folks that there is another racial gerrymandering case out there that is currently pending in the U.S. Supreme Court. And Paige, as Democracy Docket reports regularly, and readers of Democracy Docket will know, there are also cases in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that involved redistricting. So the field of redistricting law is not entirely settled. And yes, this case will proceed. But I can promise people one thing. Number one, this is going to be a hard-fought case moving forward, but also the law of redistricting is going to have more twists and turns before we get to 2026.
Before we get to 2026, what's the electoral impact on this decision on 2024 and on the balance of power in the U.S. House?
Yeah. So what it means as a practical matter is come this November, Democrats will win one more seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is almost certain the case that that second Black Opportunity District will result in a Black Democrat coming to Congress next year. So it means the margin between the two parties, as you sort of stack up the seats that are in play, the seats that are less in play, the safe seats, it means that the margin for Democrats to regain control of the House and have Speaker Jeffries next Congress got a little bit easier.
Does this ruling from SCOTUS have impact on any other voting rights cases?
Look, I think the most interesting question is, what does this mean for the South Carolina case that we have all been waiting on and we've talked about in previous episodes? For people who don't remember, there has been a racial gerrymandering case that Black voters won in South Carolina last year that we thought we were going to get a decision from the Supreme Court by the beginning of 2024, by January 1st, which is what the parties asked for. And we don't yet have a ruling. Paige, I have to say, there was a part of me that thought that maybe they rushed out this Louisiana ruling because we were going to get a ruling from South Carolina earlier today. We didn't get that ruling, but it will be interesting to see when we get that decision. Is there anything in the order today that looks like the justices may have been sort of talking to each other in that case?
All of the questions we asked today were submitted by viewers, subscribers, followers of Democracy Docket. If you have a question for Marc about voting rights and democracy, feel free to leave it in a comment below and we will answer it in a future video.
And thank you for all your questions, and thanks for watching. You can find out more about gerrymandering and redistricting in the show notes below. This video was produced and edited by Ali Rothenberg, Gabrielle Corporal, and Paige Moskowitz, and is a production of Democracy Docket, LLC.